BNext program, we can help you reflect, learn, and explore new critical skills for leaders to engage, align, and improve their employee experience for distributed teams. My name is Maya Jenkins, and I am a content manager at People Matters. And we have the huge privilege of having Casey Hotham joining us today. A very warm welcome, Casey.
Thank you.
So Casey is the Future Workplace Experience Product Owner at Telstra. Casey is a passionate and influential leader who has already held a prosperous career in Telstra for over a decade. Currently the Future Workplace Experience Product Owner in a time of transformational organizational change, Casey is obsessed with optimizing the experience of Telstra's workforce and that of its customers. She's harnessing the voice of people to help business leaders deliver end-to-end experience improvements for their people, deliver on the company's strategy, and build a future where people can really thrive. And welcome, Casey, and thank you for joining us. So the format for today's webcast will be a fireside chat. And do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. We're really looking forward to a fascinating conversation. So please don't be shy. So with employee experience moving away from a personal and individual focus, there's a need to accommodate an environment that the employer is operating in. And that means considering elements like family, location, work infrastructure. And how can we design a really impactful, outstanding employee experience that aligns with this new hybrid reality? We'll be discussing these takeaways and more today, hoping to understand better the importance of leveraging the information we have at our fingertips, listening to our people, and delivering an optimized experience in a hybrid world of work. So I'm just going to move on to my first question here for Casey. And that is, why is it a critical time to redesign employee experience? Why now, Casey?
Thanks, Maya, and hi, team. It is a privilege to be here to speak to everybody today. I think my initial response to that, Maya, is why not now? COVID's presented us with so many opportunities, and I think, the choice is really ours, whether we choose to use it to catapult forward, like in the way that we want to enable amazing workplace experiences, or default back to, pre-COVID ways of working. If you think about the pace of which things are changing and how it's continuing to accelerate from our employee and customer preferences through to the digital economy, new and technologies and tools for those, and I think importantly, for those who choose not to capitalize on that in terms of the pace of change, may not be as successful as others. Another thing that's still so pertinent, but I do think it's becoming much more of an opportunity, is this war for talent, and it's still so real. And when you think about that in a hybrid world, hybrid working and migration patterns open up to so many interesting kind of jobs for people who may otherwise actually have had a hard time gaining access to them. So, it's good for democratizing kind of access to opportunities, wider talent pools, and it really offers immense opportunity in customers and the like, but for companies, our ability to really hire the best globally by our ability to redesign how we think about workplace experiences, while also kind of broadening careers and economic possibilities without compromising people's health and well-being and family priorities.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. It really is a question more of why not now, and capitalizing on that opportunity that we've had in those changes that have accelerated, that we can really seize that moment to make things better for everybody. So moving from the now and looking to the future, what do you think the future of employee experience looks like?
I just think we have such an amazing opportunity to help our people live their best life. And so what that actually looks like will really depend on how bold and ambitious, organisations want to be. The thing I have certainty on is the approach that we in Telstra have taken and will continue to take in order to design, future workplace experiences. And at the heart of that, it's all data-driven. So really three key components in the way that we have gone about our work and will continue to do so in terms of, thinking about the future workplace experiences. Firstly, continuing to listen and act on the voice of our people and our customers. Secondly, using human-centered design methods, involving representatives of personas across your workforce in order to kind of ideate, test, launch, embed workplace experiences. And I think about Telstra in terms of the diversity of our workforce. That is so important for us, from having office-based workers to teams out in the field, to contact centres, to retail staff. There is no one size that fits all, even at a persona level, and then further down into individual preferences. So kind of using human-centered design approaches is really critical. Again, not new, but I think even more so important given the how rapidly employee preferences are actually changing. And then the third for me is around using industry trends and expertise. In a world where it feels like a bit of an even playing field in terms of all of the unknowns. And so, being able to look out into the market and even just anticipate some of the trends that you might choose to want to, go after as an organisation. It's so important to have that outside-in perspective as well. When I reflect on an example of that in Telstra most recently, we've just completed a final draft of our 2025 ambition for future workplace experiences. And it's been, a combination of the components that I just described above that's helped to inform this, really engaging, thought-provocative and data-driven approach, which has been an absolute pleasure to lead.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that example and those three components that are so important when we look ahead to the future of employee experience. And that leads me to my next question. And how would you describe employee experience and its connection with employee engagement, business productivity, and return of shareholders? And what is different and what's the same in the context of, say, remote and hybrid teams?
So I think, the linkage it hasn't changed in terms of, the focus on employee experiences. And I think when I think about employee experience, that's really kind of the in-the-moment impact and experiences that we create for our people that contribute to the overall employee engagement. So employee experience is kind of lead indicators and employee engagement is a lag. When you think about that in the business context, how happy your people are, how productive they are, in terms of, that obviously flows on in terms of impacts into your customer experience and advocacy, therefore flow on into shareholders. And importantly, which is, again, this is not necessarily new, but so much more prevalent in terms of what's happening globally, is our impact on society. And I feel real passionate about the way in which we show up and having this focus on contributing to positive impacts for the greater good. And interestingly, it's actually what our employees and customers are expecting of us to do as well. And so, think about that tagline around happy employees, happy customers, which I believe is so true. But like I said, for the most part, the opportunity is to ensure that we are focused on our people, ensuring they're most productive. And again, hybrid and remote working has thrown up a lot of opportunities in terms of, how do you ensure that occurs, regardless of where, when, how your people choose to work, and importantly that it's done so in a sustainable way that supports good mental health and well-being of our people. Having a keen eye in terms of external research, you may have seen a recent report from Microsoft that was talking to some of these key trends, and one that really stands out for me is how our people, because we've enabled so much flexibility, especially here in Telstra, they feel more productive, but that it could potentially be, at the cost of kind of, burnout and the like. And so it's something that we're really mindful of in terms of ensuring that we continue to listen to the voice of our people and understanding what are the kind of practices that we need to build as an organisation around our hybrid habits to support our people to really thrive. And again, I think it requires of us to still, the approach I mentioned earlier around staying really curious, being prepared to experiment with different practices in order to support kind of desired, behaviours of your organisation. And then the other challenge I would pose is, and it's okay to sit in the grey. And when I say that, it's okay not to have all the fixed prescriptive answers to everything. The thing I love, especially about an organisation like ours working predominantly in full-scale to agile, it's part of our practice in order to be able to kind of test and learn and experiment and launch, minimal viable products, and be okay if that doesn't quite land the way that we'd hoped to, but be prepared to keep, using data to inform how might we continue to evolve that. And so that's probably, some of the key things. Again, I wouldn't say everything is completely different. There's a lot of strengths as an organisation as we think about experience through the business productivity, return on shareholders, that we want to keep working that muscle. But, there's also, like I said, it's offered up a lot of opportunities, and I guess the choice is, like I said, continues to be ours, whether we want to really capitalise on leveraging that and continue to challenge ourselves around great employee and customer experiences leading to great outcomes for our shareholders, and really positive impacts out into society.
Wonderful. Yeah, I love that phrase. It's okay to sit in the grey, and this ongoing process of experimentation and realizing that, we're going forward and trying things out still. And if we don't get it right the first time, it's not, the end of the world, that we're always working through this process to find the best solution, but it can be a process, and it's okay to sit in the grey. And that point you made about social impact really leads me to my next question, which is, as we start to define EX in the new context of work, how can we make it consistent with company culture and its ethos?
Well, I think we should firstly say making sure that as an organisation you do have a clear purpose, values and behaviours, and with that, I think here at Telstra, obviously our purpose is to build a connected future so everyone can thrive, and I think that's, underpins that is this kind of whole notion of no longer is it about organisations kind of caring and nurturing just their employees and their customers. Like, we have such a greater responsibility as organisations in terms of how, the footprint that we leave on the globe, and how we helping society to thrive as well. And so, that for me is really important. And as we think about the different experiences that we wanted to create for our people, having kind of clear line of sight. So, well, what does that mean in terms of kind of customer outcomes, and what's the impact therefore onto society if we're going to, create these types of workplace experiences? So the challenge is to keep making sure that you kind of look to every component of your value chain in terms of what really matters. And, for us, obviously, we've got 4 clear values in the organisation with expected behaviours. So we care, we're better together, we're change makers, and we make the complex simple. And as an organisation, our ability to continue to challenge ourselves on kind of practices if we feel they're not aligned to those values and behaviours is kind of at the heart in which we go about doing our work. So it's a really nice way to have, when you have, I'm sure most organisations have this, but have values with underpinning behaviours, because it's a gentle way to kind of remind people of what we stand for, and also the behaviours that we will not accept in an organisation. It's just as important as well, and which won't be tolerated. So again, clear line of sight to what your company kind of cultural, purpose, values and behaviours are. And keep challenging yourself in terms of the experiences that you need to create and the practices that you need to build that help you to achieve that. It's always this kind of, where do you want to be? Where are you now? How do you make sure that you steer the behaviours and the practices to achieve your greater purpose as an organisation?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And how do we go about assessing our current state and defining that desired state from an employee experience perspective? And how can you assess gaps and prioritize really where's the best place to get started?
The first thing I would say is just always using data to inform your decision making. It is so important, you know. And I think in an organisation like Tauscher, we have so much data at our hands. I think sometimes we're just not quite sure what to do with all of it in some instances. But and thinking about, you know, kind of current and desired state, for us, you know, the ability to kind of make sure you continue to use the voice of your people, industry insights, so some of the components I talked about before. Maybe let me give you an example. Our most recent kind of, again, big piece of work that we did was around defining our 2025 future workplace experience, you know, kind of ambition and strategic priorities. And I think that's important to kind of use that as your where do you want to be. I'm always kind of passionate, know where you want to be. And then being able to kind of anchor that back into, well, where are you now? And again, using the voice of your people is just so critical. Not only just to kind of listen to them in terms of the opportunities, but making sure when you've defined what your gap is, engaging your people, again, there's so many different kind of human-centered design approaches that you can use to engage your people through kind of test and learn and designing and implementing along the way. And not assuming that, we'll say, you know, whether that says HR practitioners, we think we have all the answers, because I think we've proven that that's definitely not the case. And in doing so, being able to ensure that, again, you have representatives right across your persona groups in the organisation, because what might work for somebody in an office-based environment might not necessarily work for someone who's out on the field and on the go. And so I think that's important to be able to kind of acknowledge that. In terms of, therefore, building out what those kind of, when you talk about the gaps, Maya, you know, what is the gap between current state, your future ambition, using the voice of your people in order to help shape that. And then, you know, thinking about simply from a prioritisation perspective, I must admit, we try not to overcomplicate things like this, but again, big advocate of human-centered design, and so, you know, there's really simple kind of tools that you can use in there around, you know, importance and difficulty matrices to understand, you know, what is the most important thing that's aligned to the company priorities that's going to enable you to kind of, you know, shift forward in terms of the desired behaviours of the organisation and leadership as well. So I don't necessarily think that's, for us, it's not a new approach. I think as an organisation, we've used tools like that, you know, for some time now. Our opportunity is because the pace at which our people's kind of preferences are changing. I was reflecting just recently in terms of some of the voice of our people, of which we gathered only about, you know, 3 or 4 months ago. We've got a experience pulse open at the moment in terms of our internal surveying, and already you can see a shift in terms of our people's preferences. And so our ability to kind of do that, you know, insights and listen to the voice of our people, so we can keep iterating at pace, because what they said a few months ago, for some of it, it's actually starting to change already, which is really fascinating. I think the changing preferences has probably been accelerated somewhat to what I've experienced, especially being in Tauscher. And so, again, key thing for us to keep focused on as we want to achieve, you know, our, like I just described, our 2025 ambition and strategic priorities for our future workplace experience.
Thank you. Fantastic. Yeah, I think a lot of that will really resonate with a lot of people going through similar shifts and starting to notice those changes as well, and closely monitoring the data to notice those changes as that shift takes place. And so I just wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest employee experience spoilers, and how can we think of innovative ways to solve these or overcome them?
I think that might be different depending on your organisational priorities in terms of what the spoilers might be, depending to you. When I think about it from a Tauscher context, I mean, some of the key focus areas that we have deliberately chosen to go after was probably more where we've had gaps in terms of kind of process experience, and moving to work more fully from a hybrid working environment, what we've needed to put in place. I think the important context from a Telstra perspective is, flexible working isn't new for us. We've had a all roles flex policy in place since 2014. Now, COVID has definitely helped us to accelerate some of the technology enablement for broader personas in our workforce. So as an example, better enabling for our contact centre employees to be able to work from home kind of safely and effectively. But yeah, it's not a new term for us. And obviously, I reflect back to over a year ago, our ability to enable for people to work from home, 25,000 of our workforce over a weekend was fairly seamless. Because we had all the foundation in place, and also having worked in an agile construct of which we've continued to embed agile at scale in the organisation as a way of working, that also kind of well supported our shift. But some of the examples in Telstra in terms of things that we specifically addressed as part of our kind of workplace experience was our onboarding process. Interestingly, I've spoken to a number of organisations about onboarding, and I must admit in Telstra it definitely was a less than optimal experience that we created for our people as part of onboarding, and albeit we were already on pathway to improve actually the onboarding process in Telstra. Again, working from COVID just kind of threw up a few more opportunities for us to need to consider around, how do we get, laptops to people's homes, especially as they were starting new, and all these other considerations which we actually didn't have to previously because people could somewhat get into an office if they needed to. Other things that we have built out actually in service of helping to better the experience by more now fully working hybrid is making sure our people have the right equipment to safely work from home. So we've called it our My Home Toolkit, of which we've got this essentials package that employees without leader approval can request and have sent directly to their home, kind of like a Uber Eats experience, their home toolkit. So that's from desks, chairs, monitors, keyboards, laptop stands, and the like, and that's been really positively received in terms of the impact that's created for our people, which is really pleasing. And also things like making it easy for our people to be able to go into the office and book a desk, and we have developed in-house our own My Workplace app, of which we'll look to productise out to customers as well. And so yeah, a really neat platform enabling simplicity. So, from a COVID safe kind of perspective, making sure that people have the ability to go into an office, know that it's safe where they book a desk. And we'll continue to add features into that app in the coming months. So booking on behalf of teams, having digital floor plans in there and the like. And then another example is our ability to support our people to where if they were working from home or wanted to be in the office, is that the technology seamlessly connects, and that hasn't always been a strength of ours. But we've enabled, if people are going into our meeting rooms, we primarily use Microsoft Teams for a lot of the work that we do, that if they're to go into one of our meetings rooms, which are primarily powered by Cisco powered units, the systems will actually talk to each other now. So again, it doesn't feel clunky, or I need to go back to a desk because I'm in a meeting room and it's not connecting. So again, some of these things for us is more about how we've listened to they're actually, all of them are in response to the voice of our people in terms of what they're saying was kind of their experience requirement, and therefore these features and the products and services have been in a way that helps for them to more seamlessly work where, how, when they choose to do so.
Fantastic. That all sounds absolutely brilliant, and I think it's so interesting to note the increased focus on safety and enabling people to feel safe in the workplace, which I think a lot of people will agree has always been an important priority, but has perhaps accelerated and become even more important as we've been grappling with this with the pandemic as well. So yeah, using technology to seamlessly enable people to work and feel safe is is definitely a trend that we've been noticing as well. And so that is leading me to my last question, and that is, what is your one piece of advice for leaders on how to create a truly exceptional employee experience, or EX?
I'd probably say stay curious and decide with data.
Curious.
And I think that the three things that I feel that enables you to be able to do as a leader is, enabling you the opportunity to understand your people's kind of changing preferences, and as we've all kind of experienced, being able to kind of beam into people's lounges, get to know their pets, their partners, which we probably haven't done so as much prior to COVID. So getting to connect and know your people in a much more intimate way with kind of kindness and compassion and empathy. The second for me is how it enables you to kind of stay, ahead of kind of emerging trends in the market. And, like I mentioned before, as things continue to change at pace, even just globally, so important for us as leaders to kind of stay on top of these trends, so we get the opportunity to make informed decisions whether we want to do something about that or not. And then the third reason for staying curious and kind of, deciding with data is to help us as leaders to learn and experiment with our own leadership style. Like I said, working in a hybrid way, it's not necessarily new for us, but for some it does offer up some other challenges as leaders in terms of how do we lead. Maybe what was, we used to have potentially for some, maybe that was more we had, people in the office with us, whereas I think about Tasha's experience, albeit again, flexible working is not new for us. We have not mandated for people to come back into the office, and we won't be doing that. We're really focused on maximising flexibility and choice. And so when you think about that from a leader perspective, what's the behaviours and the practices that, as our leaders might need to leave behind? What might they need to kind of grow and develop? Or just as importantly, like, what are the strengths that some of our leaders have got that they should continue to leverage? That not only helps create kind of great experiences for themselves, but just as importantly for those who they choose to lead and the impact that they have.
Thank you. Wonderful. That's great. So stay curious and decide with data. Wonderful. I think we can all agree that's super duper important. So thank you, Casey, for such a fascinating conversation. That was really, really wonderful. And I'll just take the opportunity now to say a few more words about the upcoming program. So this program here, we want to offer some tools and insights for leaders joining us to make sure their teams can thrive in a hybrid virtual world just as well, or maybe even better, as they did in an office environment, and how to make the employee experience a great one. So this program will be beneficial for leaders and companies who've already started making changes and want some guidance, but also for leaders who are just getting started navigating their way through this new hybrid world and want to know how to manage this new context of work and how to do that differently. And thank you again, Casey, for joining us here today. And would you like to share any closing words of advice for practitioners embarking on this journey if they're mastering these new skills?
Yeah, I think the other thing I'd say is, as leaders, is be kind to yourself. Again, we don't have to have all the answers, but like I said, I think staying curious enables you to kind of have that growth mindset. And so being open to try different practices to, shift behaviours in the organisation. I think we've come from, a place of tending to be quite prescriptive in terms of kind of how you go about work, and this happens at what time, and I think we've kind of just thrown all of that out. And for us, the importance of kind of maximising flexibility and choice. This is about caring for the whole self, which is so important for us more so as a society. It's no longer about the person that comes to work. It's about them and their families, and what's going on in their world, and how do we make sure that we are caring for people as a whole individual. And I really love that. As much as the last year has been somewhat challenging and unfortunate in a lot of ways, the positive out of it has really made work more human. And I think that's what we should kind of continue to leverage off in terms of continuing to challenge ourselves in terms of the opportunities, stay curious, and again, like I said, decide with data. A really powerful way to continue to grow, as individuals, as teams, which is important, but how do you help kind of, your business to thrive as well?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Thank you again for this great conversation. And indeed, if we do want as companies to thrive in this new environment, we do need to stay curious and create the best possible employee experience. And we're going to need to be attracting and retaining the best talent. So if you want to know more actionable ways to create the best possible employee experience for your hybrid team, we do hope you will join us for this program, which will be starting on the 31st of May. And so that's coming up very soon, and you can go on this journey with us, and my team will be sharing the link in the chat for you to visit, and you can sign up and register for the program there. We also have a number of other programs coming up, including programs on leadership and coaching, virtual recruitment and onboarding, performance management for hybrid teams, agile and design thinking for HR, and a lot more great stuff. So please do head to the website. My team will pop that into the chat, and we can check out the other programs that we have running. Thank you again, Casey, for joining us today, and thank you for everybody for tuning into this webcast. And take care and stay well, everybody. Thank you.